that anything else that we should prep for before we start?
No, I'm gonna introduce you in a couple of minutes when we start. When I get the green light. I don't know if you're here when I mentioned. So it's a hybrid panel. So I'm standing. I'm standing in front. I'm sitting on a stage in front of an audience and an auditorium. There's a camera. It's like a you guys are projected on the wall behind me. So it's a different setup. And but the audience at home is the main target. So I'm going to introduce everybody, read a quick bio, and then very casual Q&A. It's a fun panel. So a lot of
Okay.
fun with it. Yeah.
How was it yesterday?
Long day. It was great though. It was 5:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. That's the day yesterday. We filmed a documentary travel show thing, a tour of Superman sites around Cleveland. We did a talk with Brian Bendis and Mark Andreyko at the Cleveland Public Library. Then they and Philip Kennedy Johnson, we went to a comic book store in town. We did a signing, and then we just went to a diner and talked comics for hours. It was a good day.
It sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you give me the go ahead, I will start.
Right, just checking my sound. Can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Is it okay how my glasses look, or does it reflect very bad?
No, you're okay. If you take them off, I won't recognize you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, sorry, Rai, and everyone, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Okay, it looks like we are live. So thank you everybody for joining me. This is a hybrid panel. You folks at home and everybody in this crowded auditorium, I appreciate you for joining me. This is Glenville Goes Global, a celebration of Superman and specifically his creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's impact around the world. And we are talking, I am sitting right now around the world. I'm sitting in Cleveland. And the reason the panel is called Glenville Goes Global is because Superman was created in the Glenville suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. And as part of celebrating that heritage, the Maltz Museum of Art in Cleveland is holding Icons Fest, a 2-day festival of all things comics. And a larger part of that is an exhibit called Icons in Ink, which, among other things, is the largest Superman exhibit since 1987. So we're all very excited, and we're very excited to have you guys. And let me introduce you. We will start with the lady, Tasman Humphreys. She is the editor-in-chief of the Aspiring Kryptonian, that is her handle online, a Superman fan site, and she's the founder of Comic Social App. She joins us from the UK. She has a global following. Hello, Tasman.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Next up is from Brazil, Leonardo Mollart, right? Am I saying that right?
That's it.
Okay. Mollart, known as Tall Clark, that's his handle, one word, Tall Clark, is a Brazilian lawyer, speaker, humanitarian advocate, internationally recognized as the Brazilian Superman. At 6'8", that is just over 2 meters for people who don't measure their height with their feet. He is a Superman cosplayer who leads humanitarian initiatives in countries including Australia, Brazil, Canada, Ecuador, and Ghana. Hola.
Hola. What a pleasure it is to join you guys, and thanks for having me. I hope we have a lot of fun here today, and yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a super day. From Thailand, Chang is a lifelong Superman fan who is now a comics industry professional. He is most noted as the artist and co-creator along with writer DC Comics, and is currently the artist of Marvel Comics' Sorcerer Supreme featuring the Scarlet Witch. Ni hao.
Ni hao, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I can't wait for Leonardo with the shirt off. When is that going to happen?
Yeah, I have. You should have.
We were talking about it right before we started, and the thing is, there's no phone booths or revolving doors anywhere near him, so he stuck his clock to it.
Yeah, just resting.
Yeah. And from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, we have Muiz Mukri, better known as the Son of Jeddah, the first comics and pop culture blogger in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. Salam.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, and thank you so much, Roy. Thank you to the Icons Fest team. Thank you to all my panelists. It's truly an honor to be part of this historic moment, to be celebrating the legacies of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, along with fellow content creators who are doing amazing work, and especially one heck of an artist, Bernard Chang.
This is true. Last and least is me from Israel and the United States. I'm Roy Schwartz. I'm a pop culture historian. I'm a board member of the American Jewish Historical Society. I'm the author of Is Superman Circumcised? The Complete Jewish History of the World's Greatest Hero, which Maurice kindly read through the whole thing, so, God bless you. I'm co-curator of the traveling exhibit Icons in Ink and lead curator of the Cleveland section, which, as I said, has a heavy focus on Superman and is a huge Superman exhibit. It is over 4,000 square feet with more than 100 original artifacts, including Golden Age comics and original art and Jerry Siegel's writing desk and cool things like that. So that's the wider context. So shalom, everybody, and welcome. And I'm very excited to get started. So what I think we'll do is, and again, there's a live audience, so I will be, you're going to be seeing my ear a little bit as I pay attention to everybody. I'll ask a question and then we'll just take turns answering it. And I think I would love to hear everybody's perspective on sort of the same question, beginning with, do you remember when you first discovered Superman? Let's start with Tasman, ladies first.
Was my adventures with the New Adventures with Lois and Clark, which was Dean Cain. I'm a 90s baby, so that was very much around on TV all the time when I was growing up. And I remember that my granddad used to look after me quite a lot when I was younger, and to sort of get me to behave and be quiet, he used to put that program on and sort of say, "Oh, look, Taz, he can fly," or, "Look at this guy, he can do these amazing things." So I think that was my first introduction to the character.
Bernard.
When my family immigrated to the United States, I was 6 years old. And so I would go with my mother whenever she went grocery shopping or errands. And back then, in the drugstores or supermarkets, there were these comic book racks. And she would just plop me down in front of them. I'd read all the comics. And that's kind of how I got introduced to Superman. From first grade, I actually did in first grade, we had a show and tell where we had to, do something at home and bring it in and show the other students. And I just posted this up. It's on my Instagram. I don't know if you can see it. This is a drawing that I did when I was in first grade, 6 years old, of Superman.
I can't draw that way today, but that's very cool.
So it's on my Instagram. I just posted it this morning. But, so, I mean, it's such an iconic character. And also just representing, all these morals and values that, we strive for in a hero.
Thanks. Tall Clark?
I don't remember exactly that one moment, right? But because Superman, simply feels like those characters who is always present in life somehow, right? Especially because of Christopher Reeve. I would watch him during my childhood and everything. But I need to confess, I was not that one guy who grew up completely immersed, in comic books. But the turning points for me happened, in 2022 at CCXP in Brazil when I met Mark Waid, right? There was this video that became viral at the time, and this means something to me. I could do because of this unexpected gift, I could have this invitation to serve. So I discovered Superman more than once as a child, like for the iconic hero, and then when adult in 2022, this sense of purpose that came in this mission and with the tall car profile, So that's what I feel about it.
No, that's very cool. I'm actually doing a panel with Mark in a couple of weeks at San Diego Comic-Con. I'll ask him if he remembers you.
Yeah, we met in 2022 in São Paulo.
Yeah. So I'm a 80s kid. I hatched in 1980, and I was born and raised in Tel Aviv, and I grew up on the Christopher Reeve movie, just like you. I was like 4 years old, and it's one of my earliest memories. I just run home from, I'd come home from kindergarten or whatever, put the video cassette and just sit and watch it again and again. And as I'm sure you know, in 1985 and 1986, DC rebooted their whole line with Crisis, and then John Byrne relaunched Superman with Man of Steel and the new Action Comics. What a lot of people don't know is that DC used that opportunity to try and branch into international markets, to try and see what would sell where, either directly through licensing. So in Israel, they translated a lot of, we actually have international versions of these comics in the exhibit from different countries. It's pretty cool. So we have it in like Chinese and Arabic and Hebrew and a couple of African languages. It's very cool. And I remembered that I loved it. I just fell in love with the character. I fell in love with what he stands for. I fell in love with those comics that were amazing, right? It was like a peak 80s action style. But the one thing that drove me crazy, Hebrew, like Arabic, is read from right to left, and there was no digital yet. So they just flipped the negatives. So Superman's S was always facing. It drove me nuts as a kid. That's my big memory from like age 6. This leads into the next question. Bernard, let's start with you just for fun. I'm going to mix it up. What made you a Superman fan?
Well, I mean, the comic books were really a big part of my kind of introduction into Superman lore, and DC Comics. Just that, he kind of represented this all-American value. Growing up in the Midwest, when my family immigrated to the States, we lived in Indiana. And then, reading all the Superman books and Superboy books, and, finding about how it kind of grew up in this all-American Midwest kind of life, really allowed me to kind of indoctrinate myself into, this being an American at such a young age. So
it's funny. You have like a Clark Kent personal story coming over from the old country, assimilating, putting on glasses, and there's like a whole thing there.
Yeah, I mean, Clark Kent, a Superman story is a story of an immigrant. He crash landed, technically an illegal immigrant. He, crash landed into a field and was taken in by the Clarks, and the Kents, and and every step of the way, he tried to do the right thing. And even though sometimes it's not a glorified position, he always tried to do the right thing for the betterment of everyone.
Yeah, I hear you. Yesterday, we did a tour of Superman sites around Cleveland, and somebody asked if we thought that Superman was still relevant today. And I said, wherever you fall on the political spectrum, there's a story of an illegal immigrant who comes to America, becomes a newspaper reporter, and fights a wicked billionaire. It's relevant any way you look at it. Right? Son of Jetta, since you were laughing, you're up next. When did you fall in love with Superman?
Like you, Roy, I'm also an 80s kid, though I was hatched a year before you. And you and I had the same problem with Superman because this is a comic for Arabic Superman. It's a very old edition. A local collector by the name of Figures Master was kind enough to loan me.
Thank you.
So I'm basically with my parents at one of the oldest departmental stores, which is now defunct. And in that departmental store, there's a toy section, and you have a huge wall mural of Superman. And I go to that toy section because in those days I used to collect die-cast vehicles by Matchbox, which used to be made in England. And as soon as I look at the wall mural, I'm like blown away. I'm seeing like this beautiful illustration, and I still feel it was Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I'm not sure, but it connects to this day. And I'm like, wow. And before that, the name Superman was always used casually in my family. Like my mom would bribe me by saying that if you eat spinach, you will become Superman, or if you drink this, you will become Superman, and so forth. So my introduction to Superman was not Christopher Reeve. It was rather that wall mural that basically made me mesmerized. I don't know, I just had this infatuation with a character that would fly in the air, who has all the power in the world, all the power that you can think of. And yet, whenever I looked at him, I said, man, this is a guy I want to be friends with. This is a guy I want to have as a brother. This is a guy I look up to. So that was the first moment that got me into it. And then the rest is like, I talked to my dad. I said, Dad, I'm finding these books in the neighborhood grocery stores, but these are in Arabic. And I am, even though I speak and read Arabic, I was not getting like very much interested in going through the Arabic editions. So my dad then, he knew where to get these. And then he got me my first 10 comics, one of which was the Superman issue where Superman gets exposed to some kind of a space ray or something like that, and then his body starts to expand. But unfortunately, my brother, he ripped up that comic into small pieces of cornflakes. So luckily, this is my second comic that has survived. This is the second oldest comic that I have for Superman. And from that point onwards, the costume came in, like as you can see over here.
I love that.
And then before I came across the first Superman movie or the second Superman movie, the Richard Donner ones, I came across Superman 4. And that's how it became deep and deep and deep. But the thing that really made me even closer to Superman was Roy Schwartz's book, Is Superman Circumcised?
I totally paid him to say that.
No, when I mentioned the title, as a Muslim and as a Jew, it hurts in a different place when you say that title. So, but that book is the reason it was like, my relationship with the character got redefined. And, the important part Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster played, unbelievable. I mean, that's my Superman story, introductory story, if I could.
Yeah, thank you for that. And checks in the mail. Aspiring Kryptonian, you're up next. To remind you, it's what made you a super fan?
I think mine started sort of the opposite way. I'd already seen sort of the Dean Cain Superman, and I'd seen the Christopher Reeve Superman, the film. And then I think it wasn't really until Superman Returns came out, and that's when I really fell in love with the character. But I think first of all, I was drew in from the film, and also like I just loved the bold colors, and like I started collecting like T-shirts and posters and stuff like that. And then my collection got out of control, and I basically had like a display of all these different colors, which was amazing. And then it wasn't really until after that I started reading some of the comics, and then I realized, obviously, I realized Superman was a good guy in the films and TV shows that I'd seen, but I didn't really know the ins and outs of what it was for that character. So I kind of came into that a little bit later. But yeah, I really fell in love with the character after that, especially after reading the comics.
Yeah. Yeah, similar story. Tall Clark. Leo? You're on mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I became a super fan in real life, like experience what Superman means in real life, right? The encounter with Mark Waid somehow opened this door, like a lucky gift I had when I somehow didn't even have social media back then. And then what happened later afterwards, like realizing we could bring this image to real life, like interacting with people, I can see like how Superman connects. I mean, see what we are doing right now. Like people from all over the world. We over here are from different continents, and this universal language all connects and bring people together. So it definitely made me a huge super fan.
And that's what you do, right? Travel the world as a Superman cosplayer, basically bringing people together, which is, it's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing.
If I did that in tights, it would be a not pretty sight. So I appreciate somebody's doing it. Same for me. I mean, Christopher Reeve is really the thing. And I'm an 80s kid, latchkey, father always working, the whole 80s cliche. And that was my first role model. I was like, okay, that's how a man behaves. That's how he treats other people. That's how he looks in tights. You know, all the important lessons of life came to me from Superman. And up until pretty recently in my life, that was my guide. You know, in any kind of conflict, any kind of situation where I wasn't sure what to do, what would Superman do? Now that I'm older and wiser, I ask myself, what would my wife say I should do? But that's just being grown up. Next question is, and this is philosophical, what does Superman mean to you? Let's start with Son of Jeddah.
That's a pretty loaded question, because in the end, like we are in the 21st century, and we live in an age where Übermensch was discussed in detail by Friedrich Nietzsche, if I'm not mistaken. But as a follower of one of the Abrahamic faiths, which is Islam, we grew up reading, just like kids in Hebrew schools, they read the Torah, we read the Quran, and what happens is that we come across these stories of these amazing personalities, and you know, like they were trying to convey us a message. But when we saw Superman, basically, we came to understand what that meant primarily. I mean, it's like, you know, keeping yourself in check with all the power that you have been blessed with. You might be blessed with money, you might be blessed with super flight, you might be blessed with the most technological mind. But in the end, you know, what makes a person great is the fact that he is caring towards everyone. Okay, he does not believe in taking a life. He does not believe in ends justifying the means, basically. He is there to stand up for the little guy. But at the same time, if somebody is trying to wrong a person who might be considered as the privileged one, we can expect Superman to be there. So Superman is basically the best personification of the values we learned through those prophetic stories all our lives. And basically, you know, the level of inspiration, and as I think it was Tasman who mentioned the bold colors, you know, they somehow add into that feeling of you falling in love with the character. The main thing is right now that what Superman, and I think they summarized it beautifully in the Superman 2025 movie, that kindness is the new punk rock, if I'm not mistaken. And I think at this point in time in human history, where we see a lot of toxic behavior becoming the norm at every level of the society, it's not a problem with the rich, it's not a problem with the poor, it's not a problem with the middle class, it's not a problem with people of different religious denominations. We are seeing this happening again and again. And this character beautifully, inspirationally reminds us that no, there is another way. And that way is pretty much universal. It brings people together, irrespective of what their background is. So that, I mean, like, I don't know if I have been able to summarize it properly, but this is what, when I look at Superman, and especially reading about him from a historical angle, besides reading his comics and stories, this is what he means to me. The value of kindness, the universal values that were revealed upon the Abrahamic community, which, you know, spread across the world. And Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the way they encapsulated them in one character, that's it. that is what it is. Philosophically, it's about virtue. And virtue is something different. You can be all religious, but you cannot be having virtue in you. It's not going to help. Kindness, virtue, being caring, respecting life. This is what Superman means to me philosophically.
I mean, that was beautiful. I don't know. I'm going to top that, but yeah, I think you're right. Primary values and primary colors, right? That's the hook there.
Primary values and primary colors. Yes.
Yeah. Should trademark that. Tasman, you're up. What does Superman mean to you?
It's like sort of Jada said, it's really hard to sort of describe the feeling, but it's not often that you see a character, whether you watch or read the comic or a TV show or whatever, where you come out of it thinking, I'm going to be a better person. Like, he inspires me to be a better person. And I think that the same goes for everything. I think for me, Superman means a lot to me for those reasons, but also I think because I've become so attached to the character, there's not really a day in my life where he's not involved. Like, I either read a comic or I talk about Superman in some kind of way. My son is called Kal, obviously named after Superman, and my partner wouldn't let me get away with Kal-El, sadly. But Superman's just my role model. Like, he's the character that impacts my life decisions. It just gives me that pep in my step to do better, and I think that's one of the most important things about the character.
Bernard.
For me, the aspect of humility. Here he is, the strongest person on the planet, but there's a sense of responsibility. There's a sense of humbleness. And also, at the same time, even the strongest person, there are pitfalls, or there are people that can be hurt. And there's also that his powers are not, of course, with kryptonite, he does have certain weaknesses. And so, I think to me that gives me a sense of, anytime I think about Superman, it's never always just one thing. There's a mix of a lot of different components in the character, and applied that to, regular life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what has been said and how he inspires her, I think that's what separates, or at least should separate, superheroes, the superhero genre, from just action, right? Rambo or John McClane can go around blowing people up, but a superhero movie should inspire you to be a better you. And Superman, more than any other character, I think, does that. And just like you said, Bernard, is he has the power to be anything and do anything, and what he chooses to do with it is be kind. And there's no, as simple as it is, there's no higher lesson than that for any of us. What do you think, Leo?
I mean, Superman to me means hope in action, right? Hope is often treated as something passive, as simply waiting for things to improve, right? But he goes there and acts. And beyond that, he teaches us how to act. So, like you were saying, he has the power. He could be anything, but he chose to be kind, and shows us kindness is not weakness. So choosing to remain kind when you have this great power, I mean, it's the greatest demonstration of strength in the way I think. And personally, being able to share this happiness wearing the red cape, I mean, I can't even describe what this symbol represents. I can only tell anyone could be a hero, and this is what Superman is about, teaching us in a daily life basis how to hug someone, bringing some happiness when a day is not as good for the other person as it was for you. And yeah, it's very, very philosophical, but hope in action. This is the way I would describe what Superman means to me, and how we can all get together and change the world somehow.
So let's keep with you, Leo. How is Superman perceived in your country, in Brazil, and was it any different when you were a kid?
Oh well, I could say, like, especially being in these comic cons, right? We have dedicated fans that all over the world would value all the roots from the hero itself, and this is not different in Brazil. We have a great public for that. But what I can tell is that specifically children, that's one of the main visitor. When I visit lots of schools, right? They felt a little bit far away from, like a little distance from the hero in during the last decade, maybe because of like in the movies, the way they treated the hero most recently, which I like as well. It's a different option, right? But somehow I would visit and they would say, "Where is the Spider-Man? You know, is he joining you too?" But luckily, just after that, they feel hugged by the red cape, and it's all good. But I felt there was a little distance from the meaning of the hero in lately, you know. But I feel we are bringing reconnection with, especially with kids, and yeah, Brazil is very excited from what this hero will bring us in the next years or so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, growing up in Israel when I was a kid, there was no comic book culture or community to speak of. Even today, there's a vibrant, what we'd call indie comics, like realistic or humorous, but superheroes never took. I tell people, I love Captain America, he's so cool. And the reaction was always, who, what? Like people had no idea. But again, the culture is very different. The flight of fancy that's so American and maybe European originating, it's just didn't take hold. You know, I always say, if in real life Superman showed up there and just took care of everything, awesome, man, but what's up with the outfit? It's just like a whole different Tasman, how about you?
I think it's hard to say because when I was sort of getting into Superman, which was Superman Returns, I was 13. And I think before that, there was no sort of other, I suppose you had Smallville, but nothing that you could go to the cinema to watch. I think the last one would have been Superman 4. So it was quite a big gap. So I think, sadly, the character sort of died down in the UK a little bit. It wasn't as big as what it was in the States. And I think with all the following that I've got and the people that I've been able to connect with, a lot of them are actually in the States. And in terms of knowing how popular the character was when I was younger, it's hard to say because, like you said, there wasn't really much in terms of comics out there. There wasn't a comic shop where I lived. Comic cons were sort of non-existent at that point. And it wasn't until Superman Returns came out that I started to go there. But even when I did, I think a lot of the audiences that were there to see, I think we met Brandon Routh a couple of times at Comic Cons. The people that were there to see them were people that would have been around for, you know, Superman 78 and like diehard fans. There wasn't really any younger people sort of getting into the character. And I think that links to what Leonardo said, where my son is exactly the same. He's 4, but he knows about Superman, but he is all Spider-Man. And I think it's the way that it's sort of marketed. It's more accessible for kids, I think, at the moment. So I think now that the film's come out, Superman 2025, and then I feel like the characters had more of a spotlight recently in the last sort of 10 years or so. I think it's definitely a lot more popular now, but I still feel it isn't as popular as it is in the States here in the UK.
Thanks. I not long ago, I talked about why Spidey is so popular with little kids with Todd McFarlane, who's done a Spidey comic or two. And he made a very good point. Like, you know, your average 4-year-old doesn't care that Peter Parker can't pay rent or can't go on a date. It doesn't resonate with them. It really comes down to the very simple idea that he looks really cool climbing stuff and swinging. And I think there's something true to that simplicity of why Spidey is so popular. But we're going on a tangent. Bernard, you moved to the US, you said, when you were 6. So I don't know if you have any kind of stories from Taiwan, but how was it in your childhood? How was Superman perceived compared to how you perceived him?
I think, you know, we talk about like Superman's powers and how strong he is and, you know, how fast he is and he can fly and he has laser beams. But, you know, I think what resonated more also is a sense that with all this great power, he's using it to protect people, right? And he's not using it to beat up. I mean, hey, there are fights in the superhero genre, but it's not fighting first. He's protecting first, and that kind of sensibility, I think, separates him from other heroes. From Batman, Green Lantern, Spider-Man, X-Men, and so that sense of protection or protecting people was kind of what resonated most.
I think that's spot on. I think Batman fights who's in front of him while Superman protects who's behind him. And it's just a different perspective. Son of Jeddah, Muiz.
Can you just repeat the question?
No.
We've had...
I'm kidding. How is Superman perceived in Saudi Arabia? And is that any different than how it was when you were growing up?
Superman has undergone, to be saying something really controversial, ever since we had the Zack Snyder movie. Before that, basically, there is no love lost for Superman. People who are my age, who are reaching 50, people who have crossed 40, people who are in their 30s, they are actively collecting these Arabic publications that go back to the 1960s, 70s, 80s. And for them, even though these comics were available for Spider-Man and other characters, they want to collect Superman, and anybody else other than Superman, they want to go for Batman. But Superman remains relevant. However, as rightly highlighted, that young kids, Tasman's son, the younger generation over here in Saudi Arabia also, they look up to Spider-Man. But things have now changed thanks to the recent Superman movie starring David Corn Sweat. There was no love lost. Unfortunately, things got a bit toxic after the Man of Steel and the Batman versus Superman, and people started to veer away from what made Superman great. So that is what it is. But right now, people are appreciating Superman for his original glory, for the original concept, which was conceived by the legends Jerry Siegel and Schuster, and a lot of other greats who came in along the way to tell the stories, whether it's John Byrne, whether we are talking about Paul Kupperberg, Brian Michael Bendis, who was at Icons Fest yesterday. So Superman is pretty strong in Saudi Arabia, in a nutshell.
That's great. I mean, that's the whole point of this panel, that Glenville went global, right? That these two teenagers from a suburb in the Midwest, in their bedrooms, coming up with ideas, changed the world. That's unbelievable, right? And that's, I think, the whole point. I
want to interject. I'm sorry. I want to interject.
Go for it.
One thing that people need to, especially those who are viewing our live stream, they need to go back in time, put themselves in Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's shoes. This is an America that doesn't have the internet, that doesn't have satellite channels. The media travels at a snail's pace, not a lot of room for inspiration, and for them to come up with the global icon. Like I said, the more we talk about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the less it is.
Yeah, listen, the very first Superman story, which you guys know, was their self-published The Reign of the Superman in their fanzine, which they printed at their high school. It was printed right here in a Cleveland high school. These are the humble beginnings from which the entire superhero genre and comic book industry began. I just looked it up, and the superhero genre, if you look across different media, comics, movies, television, and then licensing, merchandising, box office, makes between $40 and $50 billion a year. And that all came from two Depression era teenagers in a bedroom. It's unbelievable, right?
No doubt.
A fun question for all of you, and we'll start with Tasman. In any media, what is your favorite version of Superman and or favorite Superman stories?
I like them all, to be honest. I think in terms of actors, they all bring their own sort of thing to the character. But I'm a big comics fan, to be honest. So especially the era where Superman sort of becomes a dad, and you've got John Kent who's quite young, as because I just turned a parent as well. That sort of resonates with me the most, so I really enjoy reading that, and I do go back to that quite a lot. There's a few stories. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but they're by Brandon Easton. There's one called Truth and Justice, which is one of my all-time favorite stories. I think it's maybe 2 issues, but it's basically Superman helping a teenage boy who had been falsely accused of a crime. That was a really special book. And he also wrote, Brandon Easton, that is, in Superman Red and Blue, he wrote a story called A Measure of Hope. And it was basically a man trying to get help for his mother who was an addict. And it's basically him going on this journey with Superman to sort of mourn that and sort of get over that. For me, the stories of Superman that I love, whilst I do love those space action stories where he's fighting big robots and all that sort of stuff, I love it when he helps the real people. So, you know, the small people, as you would say, they're my favorite stories.
Leo.
Oh, well, I think I'm suspicious to say, right? Especially wearing the 80s suit, but definitely my favorite version is Christopher Reeve's Superman. But especially because the way he treats the difference between Clark Kent and Superman, like the way he acts.
You do
But
that and know
beyond
exactly what scene you're talking about.
But like beyond that, you know, we can feel tragically what happened later on in his life, and the way him and his wife like dealt with managing social actions and everything. So he turned into a real life hero, right? And yeah, definitely Christopher Reeve. But as per the story itself, I would say in All Star Superman, at that moment when he realized someone was about to take her life away, right? And he goes there not fighting like a villain or performing spectacular physical feat or whatever. He goes there to the person and shows her she has much more to contribute to the world and keep on going. Like this is the scene I would say describes well what Superman, like humanity matters more than strength, right? So in this passage in All Star Superman, I think the woman is called Regan, right? So he goes there and saves her. This is my favorite story somehow.
Okay, Bernard, how about you? Favorite version of Superman in any media and or story?
Favorite version? Wow. That's a very loaded question, and we can spend the whole hour talking about all these different stories. I also remember, like, the other thing is, you know, as a kid, coming to the States, I remember one of the first Saturdays turning on the TV, and every channel had, you know, cartoons. Whereas before growing up in Taiwan, cartoons was on one day of the week in the afternoon. And one of my favorite cartoons here in the States was Superfans. And so not only did I have the comic book version, then there was the Super Friends version, and then there was also the Christopher Reeves movie that came out. And then, of course, we also have other, you know, more modern day cartoon versions of Superman. I think the one story that kind of stands out the most for me is still also the death of Superman, and kind of like the impact that had in terms of you know, when it came out, the media, the press, I mean, it was news everywhere. It was a huge spectacle. And it's probably not the answer that you're looking for, but I mean, for me, like, one of the most memorable stories of that was, you know, the death of Superman, and then eventually how he came back and overcame, you know, Doomsday, and brought order back to the universe.
I think that's a very legitimate question. A big answer. A big part of the purpose behind that story was to let's take him away so you realize what you're missing, you know, and you can appreciate him fully. And for you guys watching at home, look up Superman 149, which is the original Jerry Siegel written The Death of Superman, which is a whole different, amazing, emotional story. A little tidbit.
Well,
sure.
The other one is one of my favorite covers was there's, I forgot what issue, but he's like eating hamburgers on the cover. You know that one where there's
Neil Adams, right, or something?
Yeah, and he's sitting there, and there's a pile of hamburgers, and he can't control himself. I think he's under the spell of a villain that he has to constantly eat hamburgers. So there's some fun stories.
that is the dream. Listen, sympathize with Galactus, because when I get hungry, that's how I get, you know. Muiz, did you answer this question?
Well, good
No,
thing
not
it
yet.
wasn't White Castles that he was eating.
Yes, well, those you don't even need to chew; you just like gulp them. But that's all. Okay, Muiz, is that right? What is your favorite version of Superman in any media?
I am heavily biased towards the late 70s, 80s version of Superman from the comics. It's Neil Adams, it's Kurt Swan, it's John Byrne, Dave Gibbons. That Superman is where because there are a lot of great stories in every decade for this character. Even as recent as what Bendis has wrote, Absolute Superman is doing great. But for some reason, I think Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster made him vulnerable by the introduction of kryptonite. If I'm not mistaken, it was Jerry Siegel or Joe Shuster or maybe Gardner Fox. I might be mistaken in that one.
But it's a complicated answer, but the short answer is Siegel and Schuster came up with kryptonite. That's the short version.
Great. So that was like the first step towards making Superman more relatable. How do you make a character more relatable who can leap off a building in a single bound, the Man of Steel, faster than a locomotive? And then what happens is that in the 1980s, quite a lot of stories happen. The Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. Superman loses Kara, the greats Marv Wolfman and George Perez. But what really, really, really struck me was this story by Alan Moore.
Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, or for the Man Who Has Everything?
The Man Who Has Everything.
Yeah. That's been adapted pretty successfully, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, he made us realize. He said, "Look, you're looking at a guy. If you're in trouble, he comes down, saves you. If the Earth is being invaded by some alien being, this guy's gonna come up. If your cat is stuck in the tree, Superman is somehow gonna help you and all that." But have you ever realized what does this character want? This being wants, who was sent across space to planet Earth by his parents when his planet was demolishing. And the way Alan Moore explored the psyche of Kal-El, I'm not going to use the word or name Clark. I'm not going to use the name Superman. I'm going to say Kal-El. That really, it struck with me for a long time. And believe me, I watched the adaptation first in the Justice League animated series. And then I went and I realized that Alan Moore is known more for The Killing Joke. But if anybody wants to read a very mesmerizing story of Superman, you have to read Alan Moore's work, one with Kurt Swan and the other one with Dave Gibbons. So 1980s Superman is hands down for me the most important one, my favorite, whether we're talking about the art, whether we're talking about the stories, whether we're talking about the crossover events, or even the toy line. As you can see behind me, the Supermobile and the Kenner toys, there was something magical.
Thank you. Rand Hoppy, the director of the Jack Kirby Museum, I put it in a great way. So, do you know when the real golden age of comics was? When you were 12. And it's so true. Christopher Reeve, and that he portrayed a Superman who's confident enough and powerful enough, and I don't mean powerful like bench press a building. I mean as a personality, that he can be warm and he can be kind. And he can be a little bit of a jerk, that robber that he lets fall off the building, just have fun with him. But he's in general very, very soft. And then the bookend of that is when John Byrne rebooted him in '86 and then made him a bit more of this kind of Reagan era, let me hang you from a lamppost kind of guy. So those, I think that's it's a very narrow spectrum, but that's where I fall. Those are my two favorite versions of Superman. I want to open it up to a Q&A. We have a bunch of questions that we got from the chat, and then we have a live audience. You should see the auditorium. It's packed to the gills. So let's go with all panelists. Thank you for an awesome, super presentation. You're welcome. Thank you. If you could imagine or create a superhero emerging from the modern day immigrant/refugee experience, what powers / characteristics would you want them to have to inspire hope for people around the world today? It's an easy question you asked by Todd. Okay, so if you could create a superhero that, like Superman, embodies some aspect of the immigrant refugee experience today, but inspires hope, how would you go about doing that? I'm going to let you start answering because I got to think about how I'm going to answer this thing. Tasman, do you have any thoughts?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to answer in full, but I think the main thing that I would make sure that they have is compassion. In the UK, the politics is slightly different to what it's like in the US, and there is basically a war between a left and a right side, and some people on.
Oh, here we get along famously, you know.
Yeah. So there's a whole thing about illegal immigrants coming down on boats, and there's often sort of news stories where, sadly, those boats don't necessarily make it, and the people that are on there, women, children, families, they obviously lose their lives. And I hate it, but I see on social media people laughing or sort of reacting to those posts like, oh, we shouldn't make that journey in the first place, or sort of laughing about it. And I think they lose compassion, because if they were in that situation where they had to leave their homes for whatever reason, they would obviously do the same thing and take that same journey. So I think that's the main thing I would make sure that they have.
Bernard, as an immigrant yourself, any thoughts on that?
Wow. I'm still trying to process and think about it.
We can circle back. Let's do Muiz, son of Jeddah. It's all good.
I want to say something by quoting a neocon academic, Francis Fukuyama, the end of history. He coined this term. For me, the creation of Superman is the end of history moment. People are going to create more characters, new characters are going to be introduced. But that template that was given by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster back in the day is so universal, so timeless, that even in this time, if America wants to see what America should be like, what are the virtues that Americans need to look up to, they can still go back and look at Superman. For me, I'm not here to discourage anyone. There are a lot of comic book creators right now in Saudi Arabia. There's like a huge drive, like supported by the government to, basically encourage people to come up with characters, to create their own comics. The Saudi Ministry of Culture is like having a department that is addressing these matters for the youngsters and people who are interested in those sorts. But we need to understand one thing, that, there are some things that can never be replicated. And there will be new stories, there will be new experiences, but it cannot have, because Superman is just, in my opinion, I might be wrong, a total package of what it means to be a superhero.
Bernard, what do you think?
I think like in modern day storytelling is really shifted towards, there's black and white, right and wrong. And modern day comics or modern day storytelling has kind of shifted more towards the middle, where it's kind of gray. Bad guys do some good things, good guys do some bad things. The original Superman had such, I guess, high standards that, probably today would not be, created it would be a very different character. And about the immigrant story, like everybody's different, you know. Everybody has different experiences. I have Asian American friends who, you know, grew up in the States and somehow or another never really experienced any kind of discrimination. Whereas I remember distinctly when I was, you know, 6 and we came in. One night we were out, my mother and father, we were out having dinner, and then on the way home driving, you know, ran off the road and called a bunch of racial slurs. You know, go back to China, things like that. And so I don't know if I would do anything different if I were to create Superman, if Superman had not been created before. Because of his idealistic caricatures, values, and morals. You know, you can't change what's already working. Yeah. Unless you fine tune it for a specific immigrant experience. But again, everybody's so different. You know, the original American immigrant story was people coming from Europe, going through Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty. You know, but now there's so many other different stories. You know, I came into America through LAX, through a plane, seeing that LAX famous building. You know, other people are going through, you know, the southern border or many other ways. And so I don't think there's a perfect version outside of just what we have already in terms of with the original Superman.
Yeah, I mean, part of the beauty of Superman is that, you know, he was an immigrant metaphor that resonated with a nation of immigrants, right? And one of the things we explored the Maltz exhibit is just how much pushback that got from the American Nazi Bund and other groups here. And they got death threats and calls, and, you know, them as well as Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, all these guys really faced an onslaught. And yet they said what they had to say, and they did what they thought was right. And I think that core doesn't change. On a smaller note, if you remember from the Superman, now that I'm a father, when I watch Superman, a part of me identifies more with Jor-El than with Kal-El. So I get choked up when he puts them and he says, "I will be with you, you know, all the days of your life." And one of them, but always hold in your heart the pride of your special heritage. I think this is a small answer than yours, but I would like to see that as part of the metaphor, the ability to be proud of who and what you are and where you're from, while also embracing where you are. How about you, Leo?
You know, I wouldn't change like Superman's essence, but I would bring this essence closer to what we live today. You know, in a world with war and all these immigration issues, I would take like especially Clark Kent's role as a journalist. You know, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a journalist, but I come in Brazil from a family with lots of journalists, and I can tell their responsibility for truth and not spreading fake news. We've seen that in last movie from James Gunn, right? That scene with the monkeys spreading hashtag super shit and all this. And I think specifically for the immigration issue, like we could work on that with emphasizing the role as journalists with your glasses on. And maybe for the movies, I would take like David Cornsweet all going through different continents and bringing people together because, yeah, as we know, Superman is an immigration story, right? So it feels universal. It is universal. And when you get different people interacting with the character, I think we can emphasize this, what Superman really means, right? So for the issue of immigration and these problems we live today, I would say getting with different countries, different continents would be a good idea.
Yeah. So we have time for one more question before we sign off. And this is from Jonathan, who wants to know, what is your most prized Superman possession? So let's start with Tasman, please.
I was tempted. I went out of storage, but I haven't, sadly. But I've got it's a reprint of Action Comics #1, sadly not the original, but it's signed by Jerry Siegel. That's probably my prized possession.
That is lovely.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
It was a birthday present, and it's still the best present.
For this amazing present.
My partner, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Moise, how about you?
That's a bit difficult question for me to answer, but I think it's this one.
That's a Jim Lee based statue, right?
Yes. It's iconic. It has that 80s look and feel into it, even though I know I am doing a bit of an injustice with a lot of my other favorite works. But, this statue has, it defines Superman for me in so many ways. And I think this one is my prized possession.
Yeah, Bernard?
I don't know if I have any. I'm looking around my studio. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I would say like maybe not a prized possession, but I have gotten to work on some pretty awesome like Superman projects. So I did draw Superman for 2/3 of a year, including issue 700, which was an oversized issue that included a lot of other Superman artists and writers in it. I've gotten to work with Dan Jurgens, who wrote and drew The Death of Superman. And then most recently, in San Diego Comic-Con, which is coming up in 2 weeks, I did a cover for the Superman Experience, which they're going to give away to fans that come by the DC Comics booth.
I'm planning on being there, yeah.
So, you're going to be there too, right? You have a panel. So, I try not to collect a lot of stuff, although I do have a lot of junk. But I mean, for me, just being able to draw the character, from a kid that used to read and watch the character on TV and comic books and movies, and then today as an adult being able to work on books that have Superman in it, I think that's just probably the most memorable thing for me.
Yeah, mine would have to be, I have a copy of Look magazine from February 1940 where Superman fights the Nazis, the famous one where he grabs Hitler, and they're hard to find, they're pretty rare, and it's the first time any superhero takes on the Nazis. It's actually at the exhibit, I loaned it, so that would have to be my prize position. And it's one of those, I found it in a random garage sale. The person just sold a lot of these magazines, had no idea, so it's one of those. So on that note, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time. You guys are in 5 different time zones around the world. For some of you, it's night. For some of you, it's day. So I appreciate you taking the time. Where can everybody find you? In my case, I'm Real Roy Schwartz. That's my tag across social media. Don't fall for any of the fake ones. Real Roy Schwartz. Tasman, how about you?
I'm pretty much the aspiring Kryptonian on everything apart from Twitter, which I'm aspiring crypto.
Moise?
You can find me as Son of Jeddah, SON of Jeddah, JEDDAH. In case of Instagram, it's son_of_Jeddah. So I am available on all social platforms.
Leo?
Thank you guys for having me. You can find me as handle Tall Clark in all social media, and it will be a pleasure to spread much more joy with you all through videos, and hopefully I'll be in your country sometime soon as well. Thank you.
Cool. And let me know when you make it to the States. We'll take you around. Bernard?
The Bernard Chang on Instagram. but also YouTube and anything else. It's Lee Bernard Chang.
So thank you guys again, and thank you everybody who's here today, and thank you everybody watching. Have a super day.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Icons Fest and Norse Museum, and to each and every panelist. Love you guys.
Thank you guys, and
Thank
congrats for an amazing event you guys host.
Thank you.
And have a super day.
Yeah. Bye-bye.